I, like so many Netflix viewers, fell in love with Ozark, even though I wasn't enamored with Omar Navarro during my first watch through of the series. Ozark is a crime drama with some big personalities, from the conniving Wendy Bird to the potty-mouthed anti-heroine Ruth Langmore. Protagonist Marty Bird is a lot more mild-mannered, but his personality balances out the dynamic with the other members of his family. Omar Navarro is also a quieter character, but with the show presenting him as the overarching villain, at first, I found him a bit bland. Every time he was on screen, I found myself wishing for another scene with other villains like the unpredictable Darlene Snell or the odious but fascinating Cosgroves of the Kansas City Mob. I particularly enjoyed Omar's cartel lieutenant Camino del Rio, who is one of the most charming villains I've seen on crime dramas in a long time. I was heartbroken when he died in Ozark Season 1 because I felt he was carrying the show. However, I recently rewatched Ozark, and it became clear as day that I wasn't giving Omar a fair shake. Why Omar is misconstrued as a soft villain. He quietly wields his power and has others enact violence for him. Navarro on his phone in Ozark. The most glaring reason that I, and many others, saw Omar as a soft villain was because he wasn't physically shown on screen, having interaction with the birds until Season 3. He acts as an off-screen villain and, therefore, we don't think of him as a legitimate threat because he's never actually seen. We also never actually see him inflict any harm on anyone. Additionally, Omar is not perceived as ruthless as other Ozark villains, such as Darlene, who flat out poisoned her own husband. But make no mistake, when the birds first meet Omar, he certainly represents a threat. The opening scene with Omar in the pilot episode is at once chilling and calculated. Omar communicates through his enforcers as he sits behind a desk, almost detached from the immediate violence surrounding him. This first interaction shows him as a man who doesn't need to exert physical force. His mere presence and reputation are enough. It sets the tone for the character's relationship with the birds, where he controls them not with overt threats but with the quiet, looming potential for violence and his ability to manipulate situations, like when he gives the order to execute Helen. While Omar isn't like Gustavo Fring, who kills someone with a box cutter, his cold nature still signifies a threat. How Omar's relationship with Wendy is misunderstood. Their relationship is complex. Many people believe the relationship between Omar and Wendy is romantic because they frequently flirt with each other. There's also a theory that Wendy could see Omar as a father figure because she is keen on helping Omar. She assists him in laundering his money and devises a plan to keep Omar and his family safe if his cartel's relationship with the Laguana cartel goes sour. The two of them are concerned with their family's safety despite manipulating them at every turn. One of the darker threads in their relationship is how Omar begins to see Wendy as a figure who understands his concerns about family and legacy. It makes sense that even Laura Linney herself is unsure if Wendy is a villain. Just as Wendy manipulates her own family, especially her two kids, Omar is trying to shape a future for his children in a system that would otherwise destroy them. There's a chilling symmetry here, both are parents who use their families as pawns in their own ambitions. Wendy encourages Omar to pursue immunity, not just as a business move, but as a way to ensure his children won't live in fear. It's a seduction of legitimacy, but it also shows how deeply Wendy has internalized her idea of power. Additionally, despite their strategic alignment, there's no real trust between Omar and Wendy. Everything between them is performance. Omar tests Wendy repeatedly just as he does with Marty but in subtler, more psychological ways. He'll demand impossible decisions or place her in morally compromising positions, just to see how far she'll go. Wendy, in turn, consistently chooses survival and ambition over morality, which only deepens Omar's fascination with her. Yet the power imbalance remains. Omar is a cartel boss with the ability to destroy Wendy in an instant. Their relationship is a tightrope walk, and Wendy's increasing boldness in manipulating him eventually contributes to his downfall. She wants to use him as a stepping stone, not as a partner. What the Omar actor has said about his character. Felix Solis drew from real life to play the character. Omar leaning against Adable in Ozark. Omar is brought to life on screen by actor Felix Solis, who does an excellent job of depicting the character's muddled morality and calculating nature. In an interview with Forbes, Solis discussed his approach to playing his Ozark character. Specifically, Solis discussed how he drew on his own experiences as a business owner to bring the character to life. Why Omar is actually the perfect Ozark villain. He doesn't pull any punches. Omar from Ozark in prison garb talking with Wendy. Omar is actually the perfect villain for Ozark because so much of his character is tied to the series' central themes, namely the close connection between bureaucracy and crime in America. In other words, the show likes to highlight how someone can be a total criminal and still be successful in America. For example, Omar runs his cartel like a corporation. He has layers of hierarchy, clear chains of command, and a ruthless approach to efficiency and loyalty. His interest in using the Birds Casino for money laundering is strategic, reflecting a bureaucratic need to streamline operations and legitimize criminal profits. This mirrors how corporations in America often use legal loopholes and offshore accounts. Omar wants a cleaner balance sheet, just like any multinational CEO. Omar's interactions with Marty Byrde especially highlight this idea. The cartel leader often comes across as coldly rational. He's obsessed with succession planning, PR, and diversifying his operations. In essence, Omar's trying to evolve from outlaw to oligarch, demonstrating how crime, once successful enough, aspires not to hide from bureaucracy, but to become it, which is what makes his Ozark character so interesting.